We still got a couple minutes.
Send down from the page. Oh, yeah. Was there a mic that went out? Yes, it went out. I didn't get it.
Okay, if I don't have water, yes, yes, there's no hot water.
That's all right, we'll boil our own water in.
Just put it on the sidewalk. We'll mix the boiled water with some hot air and that'll hot air in here.
Right. It's going to be on Tuesday, a high of 99.
My weather says it's gonna be 100.
Oh, what's it,
In New York, New York City.
Oh,
on Tuesday, where we're going to be.
Oh, cool.
We had the city rearrange things this time.
I hope the sun has air conditioning.
Yes, they're going to,
Yes, it's
I have friends to this, it's a middle school graduation.
That auditorium will be here.
I'd like to, you know.
I saw that, we met. That's what But I took you in Eugene, if you don't want to do it, then. They don't.
Son was graduating. I agree. Well,
Hi, how you doing? Okay, that's 10 o'clock, so thank you all for coming. Today is Juneteenth. I guess that's why there's some empty chairs. Everybody's out to whatever celebration is Juneteenth is. I hope they're indoors. I have no opening remarks for this morning. I will take just take note that later in the later in the meeting, on the new business, we have some succession planning items to discuss with you. That was the reason for our executive session, which I hope didn't put anybody out. Anybody at the table have any opening remarks? Okay, first year session. Wow, moving right along. Into the meeting session. Approval of the minutes from the June 5th meeting. Molly sent them out a day or two ago. Okay, second, discussion. Vote in favor, okay. Communication received and sent by the corresponding secretary.
No communications received by email. I did receive a written correspondence from Ina, and that was shared with Dave. And do you want to talk about that?
You read it. Read it to the.
Okay.
If you have it.
Yeah, I do. I just have to dig it up. That's
Here.
Oh, thank you. Dated June 11th, to members of council. I would like to bring up an issue that I believe has never been raised before. There are now 2 council members who are also resident directors on the board of directors. This would seem to be a conflict of either position. To have both the president and vice president in a position where they may be privy to issues brought before the board of directors and not be able to share information with other council members because of confidentiality. This is wrong, and as was brought out previously in a statement I made to the council stating, you can't say this, what I say as a resident, this is as a board member, end quote. Having both council members sit on the residents' council reflects an air of improprieties and should not be allowed. Ina.
Anybody want to respond to that?
I guess she's pointed at Dave and I disagree with the context that there's a veil of impropriety. Everything we do is in the bylaws, so I just seek, if you think I'm doing something wrong, or Dave's doing something wrong, tell us what we're doing wrong. I don't see it.
There's nothing in either sets of bylaws that prohibits or even speaks to the point of serving in both positions at the same time. So,
Bonnie Sue had a hand up.
yes, but we're in session right now. So you
Oh.
can save it for later. We're glad to hear it.
So
Glad to hear it, no. Okay, Larry, would you tell Anna you brought it up and these are our responses
Yes.
as correspondence? Yeah. Old business, bylaw addendum, Tom?
Yes, as one of the results of passing the new bylaws, I have contacted all of the chairs of the council, of the committees that are noted in the bylaws, section 5, as an addendum. Everyone has replied, there is no change, so I'm offering to the recording secretary a copy of the approved committees recognized as June 19th. I have a copy that will be placed in the binder. And it basically, I'll read it to you so we have it complete. There's a financial review committee. These are council committees. Review committee, benefit fund, dining services, physical plant, health center, and road. Finally, it's recognized as council committees. Under combined committees is sustainability. And under residents committees, there's art and decor, interfaith, land conservation, landscape, library, mental health and wellness, the welcome committee, and political affairs. So that has been updated and it's in the book. That's my report. Any question? Thank you.
Nominating committee.
Nominate committee.
Again,
Okay.
what will we do now?
Okay, we put out a notice that we needed to form a nominee committee because coming up real quick is we have to have our elections in October for next year's change in personnel for residents council. We've had 2 responses. I'd like to acknowledge that Wayne has responded positively to be on the nominee committee.
For the 3rd year.
We're not looking for a county number. And
It's
the
not even a
other,
record yet.
and the other person that has put their name in is Sue Gilder. Between Sue and Wayne, Sue has decided she will step up and be chair. So we're still looking for members of it. People that have been, would like to do it again. Okay, no pressure. No pressure. We know where you live.
So, do you have a motion to form a committee?
Yes, we have a motion to form the nominating committee with Chair Sue Gilder. And they have a list. I've got 13 names that she is going to seek your support if you would like to be on the nominating committee. Understand, nominating committee is an ad hoc committee. You're on it just to get a slate of people for the election. And then once that's done, we disband the committee. And so it's it's pretty intense first few weeks, but after that, it's done. Okay, I know you would like to say something.
I'm not volunteering, I just have a question, is there a residence requirement anymore? It used to be. There's no resident, okay.
And what did you say, Tom? I didn't understand. 13, Sue has a list of 13 what?
Potential committee members. People that
Some of them could be candidates too.
yeah, they could be candidates, but to reach out for a nominating committee, and you and she can discuss that.
Okay, so let's get a motion to form the committee.
Form-
Is that your motion, Tom?
Yes.
Okay. Second, all in favor, okay, and And so they will work backwards from the date in which we need to announce victors, and they can make their own schedule on how they want to present to the community. I don't want to bog them down with things. Is that what you and she discussed?
Yes.
Okay.
But she doesn't realize that she will now become the famous owner of the red binder. Which explains the process, explains the rules, stuff like that.
Okay, so this time, we're gonna have 5 of us are cycling off. Some of us may run for re-election, we may not, but there's gonna be 5 openings for January, so I hope there's at least 7 good candidates out there.
Yes.
I've got the funds that are good candidates. Okay, anything else on nominating committee?
That's it.
Okay, I'm gonna pass the microphone down to Carl, and we'll just go this way for committee reports. Yakov, you can be last.
No meeting.
I like that.
Okay, the Art and Design Committee did meet, and the main thing that was discussed is the new walkway photograph, which has been hung on the library wall, which you cannot miss. You bump into it as you leave the room here. There hasn't been any comments that I'm aware of as far as the people appreciating it or not appreciating it, or possibly also being sad about the other pictorials of the trees being removed. But it's not a permanent installation. It's nothing more than the fact that the library is coming down at some point in the future. That piece was donated by the Ruffin family, mainly because they couldn't use it. It's kind of big and cumbersome, and it's there. That has been the most obvious addition, and which caused most of the discussion at the Art and Design meeting. Okay. So there wasn't much else discussed aside of that, except that an assortment of changes have been made, which is a continual process where pieces come down, other pieces go off and change and so on, all due to resident comments and contributions and so on. So that gets discussed at the meeting. And at the present time, there still isn't a vice chair for the Art and Design Committee. Nobody had volunteered for that. So that's Art and Design. Unless anybody has any comments, I'll move on. Okay. The other committee I'd like to report on is the Landscape Committee. Landscape Committee is somewhat new to me, in as much as I just started this year. I've attended possibly 3 or 4 meetings, but after a while it becomes kind of a routine. The way the meetings are run is you get the horticulturist report, and that usually takes a half hour to 45 minutes, where he reports on what he's doing around the campus. And that would include everything except the lawn, because the lawn is the purview of the Sustainability Committee. And what Mark had reported on is that the lawn restoration at the tree line has been completed, aeration has been done, and there is a problem where the spruce trees along the roadways have to be replaced because they are nearing the end of their useful life. Trees that are planted like that, such as spruce trees, which are evergreens, last about 20 years. And then they must be replanted. So there was a discussion of what type of tree to use to replant. And then that's also regimented because of availability and cost. But trees that were mentioned were, of course, dogwoods, which everybody loves, and also the flowering pear trees, which present a nice appearance in the spring also. So that's going to be done on a continual basis. The spruce trees are going to be torn out, and those flowering spring trees will be replaced. He also mentioned everybody should be a little careful. There's more poison ivy than usual because of the increased rain. And that was the crust of the landscapes meeting. Are there any questions? Okay then,
Larry has one.
yeah.
I'm disappointed to hear that those pear trees might be a replacement. Those are, if I'm not mistaken, Bradford pears, which yes, for a week or so in the spring will look nice, otherwise they are not so nice. They are invasive species. And they tend to take the place of other more native trees when they're placed and left alone, so I would not like to see those.
Well, I hear you, but they're kind of a restricted planting along the roadway. And basically, they can't proliferate on their own, too easily, but I'll pass that on, okay?
Pass the microphone on too.
The dining committee has not met since the last meeting, so there's no report from that. It meets again on the first Tuesday of the month at 10 o'clock, and observers are welcome. The sustainability committee also will meet next week at 2 o'clock in the classroom, and you're all very welcome to come to that meeting. And there was a successful event Tuesday. We showed a movie called Pollinators.
I'm sorry, classroom next Wednesday?
Yes, it's the sustainability committee. Next meeting is 2 o'clock in the classroom.
This is the classroom.
Yes.
Board's got an all-day retreat in here.
Oh, well, we probably will be shifting to the games room then. I was not told that. Okay, and the movie The Pollinators was well received. It was a little long, but very dramatic, showing us the bees being transported cross country and let loose. Very interesting. Okay.
For June on sustainability. I have a couple reports here. We do Rove. Rove hadn't met in a couple of months. We did meet this past we did on Monday. Our treasurer noted that both our collections and our participation are down in the 8-9% range. Not quite sure what that is. We decided to do a couple of activities to help spruce that up. One of them is Martin, one of our members, has taken it upon himself to, as part of a 2-person team, to go out and contact in person new residents, explain the program to them, and hope to get them on board. Previously, what had been happening with new residents is that after they're here 3 or 4 months, that the business office would send out a road form and hope they participate. We're going to get a little more aggressive with that. And we decided, and this will come up later under association for August, I made an offer to the road committee that they participate in the next association meeting in August and explain their program, and that'll be a joint program with the benefit fund, which we'll do a next report. Questions on road from within? Okay, so I attended the benefit fund meeting yesterday. They're a pretty active group right now. They're planning a social in July. It should be in the July newsletter, where it's just a casual Friday afternoon thing where they're going to explain their program to new members and old members. I think there's some refreshment, but don't hold me to that. They are also interested in working with the Garden View and perhaps purchasing a saltwater aquarium, 75 gallon. That's going to depend on the research that gets done by the Garden View as to the vendor, etc., and making sure that everything's going to be the way it should be. So we got a couple things going on there. Questions on that? Okay, those are my 2 committee reports. I'll give them the right.
The Welcome Committee report. Michelle Cormolia and Sarah Leonard came to the meeting to announce that a social worker, Annika Evely, Annika, has been hired for 3 days a week. She will help determine if people applying to move into Woodland Pond can meet the requirements for independent living and to help new residents transition to Woodland Pond and independent living residents transfer to the health center. Her duties will be increased as needed. She will start in mid-July or August. If there is a need, her position could be made full-time. 3 people will be moving in July and 1 person in August. A proposal to request that marketing add an alert magnet to the welcome bags given to new residents moving in with pets was approved. A proposal to have a welcome committee mentors tell their mentees about Rove 3 months after they moved in was rejected. Questions?
I didn't know that, but that was followed, your meeting came after ours, so we'll have to take that up again, okay?
Carrie Kohler, our new activities coordinator, came to the meeting to learn what the committee does and how it is related to the mental health and wellness task force. Carrie requested a short explanation of what the committee does to add to a directory of all committees and task force that she is compiling. Wayne Lavender announced that Woodland Pond has hired a licensed clinical social worker, Annika Epley, to work 3 days a week to help determine if people applying to move into Woodland Pond can meet the requirements for independent living, to help new residents transition to Woodland Pond and help independent living residents transition to the health center. Her job may become full-time if needed. There are several programs being planned. Elise Nyman on how to make legacy videos for friends and family. Speaker from hospice on what hospice is and what they do. Claire Wade, vision expert, will give a program on macular degeneration and apps to help people deal with the condition. Peril or Cameron will help them learn how to use the apps. Terrell. Okay. Gerda Mizell on concierge medicine in independent living will be another program. The list of resources for the planning group of the Health and Welcome Committee that lists names of local mental health providers and services is now posted in the mailroom. Questions?
No, but I think that's a good idea. I remember when that first came up, that, people didn't want to have to put themselves out to make inquiry about that research. I think whoever idea it was to just kind of put it discreetly in the mail room is a good idea. Can wait.
Yes,
Okay, thanks.
well, it's just related to that.
Gosh,
Okay, I just want to correct you on 2 items for it's the health and wellness.
for our fans in TV room.
Thank you.
It's the Health and Wellness Committee, not the Health and Welcome Committee. And, yeah, and, there are discussions with Gerda Mizell, not to talk about concierge medicine, but to talk about hospital discharge planning. Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin.
Okay, so, I had one more thing I needed to add about the benefit fund. They approved they and management have approved a new brochure. This is a soft paper copy. I guess it's going to be done in hard stock, and it's go to their social on July 11th. You'll be able to get one. So we'll circulate this around the room. People can look at it. Now, Jakob, if you had something on political affairs? Yeah. Would you like a microphone? Please don't say yes.
And so it's a little bit of a censorship. The Political Affairs Committee had 2 meetings. The Democratic primary candidates for New Paltz town supervisor, Tim Rogers, which is currently the village mayor, and Amanda Gotto, which is the current town supervisor, presented in the park on June 4. The residents' attendance was significant. A comment that I heard from one of the presenters is that it was much more significant than some of the events that are advertised for the public. So, which is something interesting. Jay Mandel moderated the discussion. The two primary candidates for the Ulster County legislation, which basically gets representatives from different smaller regions like New Paltz and so on. They are Stana Weisbord and Bill Murray. They were invited to a presentation on Monday, the 16th, this past Monday. Norm Breyer moderated the discussion and presented the written statements by Stana Weisbord that could not attend because for last minute she got a fever and so she couldn't attend. But we had their statements, the written statements of those was presented. Both events were well attended and had good participation of the residents. I don't know if there are any questions.
Larry's got some. Yes, Larry.
I will give you the written.
Just an observation, I voted absentee ballot last week for those two positions. And it wasn't until the beginning of this week that the county legislature positions were spoken about here. So kind of late in the process.
We acknowledge that. I mean, we had to organize these meetings. We didn't want to do them at the same time, 4 candidates at the same time. So I understand that. There is still time to vote, and I think you can reverse your vote if you want.
You mean vote twice?
You can vote as many times as you want.
Early and often.
That's Chicago.
Okay, thank you, Yaka. No council topics review, new business. We have our next association meeting is on August 27th. And you know how it is, we talk for a couple months in advance of what are we gonna do, what are we gonna do? So Tom and I picked up a couple of loose threads and suggested that wouldn't it be nice if we put both the Rove Committee and the benefit fund in the same room and let them explain to the community the differences in what they do, who they serve, how they raise their money, and their histories. And both have agreed to do that. In addition, I think they're having that joint meeting in July. So if without objection from, or with objection from anybody from the table, is that how we want to proceed for the August meeting? We talked about that briefly, but I think this would be a pretty good one. Tom has volunteered or been volunteered to do the graphics. And
If they want.
no, well,
Yeah.
let's assume.
All right.
Let's assume. I think that what you do is a great addition to the association meetings for some time in the past. Before that, it was people getting up and speaking, but now their words have a visual part to them too. I think it's a much better presentation. Are we all set with that? Yeah. Okay. Succession planning. We had a closed meeting executive session this morning to talk about a couple of things that have come up and are coming up. As you know, as the community knows, next week, Tom and I will become members of the Woodland Pond Board of Directors. And there has been some discussion among residents about whether that's good or bad or should or shouldn't be. Tom and I have taken slightly different opinions and paths on that. And let me tell you what happened this morning on that. That I have.
Can you clarify the succession planning for the council? Is that? It's the succession for the council, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
So I have decided to resign from the council effective September 1st. And what that means is that Tom will become president through the end of this council year. Tom is going to stay on. He's not resigning. I'm resigning because I think the workload would be too much for me to do both these jobs, to serve in both these positions. But Tom's going to serve out, and we need a vice president. So that's pending. That's something we didn't decide. We have also that Kathy Kelly has asked for a 2 month leave of absence from her position here. And in the session this morning, we decided we would offer that 2 month position to John Ortner. He's accepted. We also decided that we'd offer John Ortner the final 4 months of my position, and he's accepted. So John, welcome to the council. Yay, John, thank you. John indicated that he'll become a candidate, so there's one less candidate you need, Wayne, you got one. This council, including John, will get together and decide what I think is also an important matter, is that in the event for the 4 months that Tom is the president, who will be the vice president? Should Tom not be able to serve? Should some matter of conflict between board and council come in and Tom might want to recuse himself, who would take over? Our bylaws are silent on that. So we met this morning to discuss that, and the group decided to pin that, pending John's coming onto the council and then having a meeting to do that. They figured they got my 2 months, my remaining 2 months to figure it out. So that's where we are with succession planning, and I addressed the council knows this, but I addressed the audience. Do you all have any questions about that we can answer?
Are you taking comments also or just questions?
Everyone do it.
Thank you. I'm a little handicapped now.
I'm glad actually to wait to discuss this now since you mentioned the succession planning. I think that goes along with the statement that Ina said that you read, Larry. I don't think that, Tom, you should take this personally, or Dave. I don't think anyone is concerned about you as individuals. But I think there is whether it's in the bylaws or not, there's a picture or an appearance of a conflict of interest. It just doesn't look kosher. I can't explain it, and it doesn't look kosher. I know that Dick Barry has always said that that the resident members of the board of directors do not represent the residents. They are members of the board. I think that should be looked at. It would be nice if we had residents on the board of directors who represented us. I think, number one, I'd like to see, and I don't speak just for myself, there's a number of folks here that we've been talking about it that are of the same opinion, that should be looked at. I don't know in what forum, but I think the fact that resident directors don't represent the residents just seems kind of odd. I don't know what the form would be, but I'd like to raise that as something that could be considered. Number two, I thank you, Dave. We'll be sorry to see you go from the resident council, but I think you made the right decision. Tom, whatever your reason, I'd like you to rethink it. Not because anyone doesn't trust you, but I think there's an appearance that it just shouldn't be. So anyway, I would like the resident council to think about that and to see if there's some way of dealing with that issue. Thank you.
Jill in the back.
I'm also.
Having served on a board of directors for a CCRC, I can explain why the resident members don't represent the council, the residents here. They represent the board. And the person who represents us is Michelle. If there's somebody here who needs something from the residents council to be addressed by the board, it goes through Michelle, not through the resident council members. And I think the resident, we always had 2 residents on our board. out in Western New York. And I think the way we understood them was that they were not representing the residents to us, they were representing us to the residents. That's the only explanation I can actually give, but we did not recognize the people of the residents on our board as being representatives. We recognized our CEO as the person who represented the residents.
I believe that is standard, that people in a board are just there for to defend or to argue for the interest of the organization as a whole. In the case of the board, that would be the case. And I think that interpretation has been not only the way it's been done, but I think that the members, as far as I know, both Dick, Barry, and Ray, I think they kind of stayed off in most of the main decisions of the council and the residents. And I brought this up, I mean, as a comment at one point when we were talking about the candidates. So I think that yes, it's just a question of it. It's not a question of appearance, which I fully agree with you. I mean, the visual of having the same people representing the two constituencies. Not necessarily there are conflicts of interest by default, but there are cases where there is a conflict of interest. And now people have the option to declare, well, I'm not going to speak on that because I have a conflict of interest. I'm also a resident, I'm also a member of the board. I think that that's something that definitely we need to consider. I know that when I brought it up at one point last year, I believe, or made a comment, somebody says, well, there is nothing in the bylaws that prevents it from happening. But the bylaws is not necessarily the Bible. It's bylaws. So I think that this is a legitimate concern.
Wayne have a hand up?
Since I believe that Ray and Dick each spent 7, 8 years on the board of 9 years on the board of directors, but were not on the council. Wrong. They were on the council previously.
Ray had been at one time.
I see.
But not, Dick had not, but Ray had been.
Okay. And in the meantime, our situation, independent of individuals, situation now is that the head of the council also is the representative from and to the council from a couple committees that they report on, and also will be on the board of directors. It just looks like an aggregate of theoretical power. Power is a bad word.
My career goal was to become Robert Moses. Like everything. No, I'm the opposite of what he said.
By the way, a friend of mine is now giving a lecture series in Manhattan about power and Robert Moses. Robert Moses is a lot not like you. Anyway, it just the appearance is a lot of activities, power and spokesmanship in one place, whereas it didn't really happen before.
We appreciate, the council appreciates that. It's been spoken about during the process of selecting, beginning like last Christmas, of selecting resident directors. And it seemed to the board, I don't speak for the board, please, if you're listening, that people on the council were the ones coming forward to ask for that position. There was like 5 out of 9 candidates. So from their point of view, this is who they had, this was the talent pool, if you will, that they chose. In fact, they even suggested an amendment to our bylaws when we asked them that the candidates come from the wider community, and we objected to that language. But what they meant was not only board members be considered for the other members. That's what the original intent was. That language has been modified thanks to various comments, but that's where that really came from.
And there's a second point. It's somewhat incidental. 2/3 of the people who live here are females. And
Right.
And it's sort of, if the two people who happen to now, with all the changes that occurred, be on the board are both male, it's just something that's, it's a shame that it's not a representative, for whatever reason. I'm sure it's a host of reasons. I don't think that the board was out to look for just males, because originally they took one male, one female.
And there were, up in King, 7 were male.
Yeah, interesting.
But there was all, that's all self-selected, not. So,
And Robert Moses was male.
someone's got something.
Just, Wayne, just to clarify your comment about my role as being vice president on the council. I do attend and participate in the physical plan and the financial review committee as a non-voting ex facto member. I'm a liaison. I only go there to listen and act as a conduit from that committee back to this council. So my power there is null and void. Thank you.
This is not about the board. If somebody still has board comments, do you have a board comment? Okay, then I'll go after him.
I think we slipped into years, but that's okay.
Yeah.
I'm back with some other things.
Sorry.
No, please.
Yeah. I served as on the board at St. Luke's Hospital as the president of the medical staff. And actually we served 6 years because the past president was on, the president-elect was on. So I served 6 years. And there I represented the medical staff. And I think that when the board said that they wanted people from the community, they were looking for other input. And I think that it is important to have representation on the board that does represent us. And to say that it's all going to go through the CEO, I think that it becomes self-perpetuating. If there is any problem, it may or may not get through. And I don't understand, there certainly can't be a law that it has to be this way. I think it is healthy to have us represented in a real way, someone that you know, someone that you talk to, be on the board and represent us. I don't see where the problem lies, and it just doesn't make sense to me as a new person looking at it. I think objectively to keep it this way.
This would be a good example of if I was a board member recusing myself from the entire discussion would have been because I've already made a decision.
Right.
Okay, I'll leave that something.
This is an observation for my own and in talking with other residents. We are being asked to contribute to Rove, to the benefit fund, and yesterday Michelle launched a $7 million capital campaign fund. There's Alzheimer's funds, there's bake sales. It just seems like residents are being asked for an awful lot of money. True, many can afford it and it's not a problem, but that's not true of everyone. And I'm asking how we can consolidate this, because if Martin's going to knock on your door in 3 months and ask you for $1,000, if the benefit fund is going to pass out a brochure and ask you for more money, we also contribute to other organizations like Alzheimer's, and those are all good things. But cumulatively, it's getting to be difficult.
I have a difficult one. You want to do this one? Maybe not this month. I think maybe next month would be a better response for that. I think Jason's got an activities committee plan that maybe could sift some of this He hasn't presented that yet, and it's not definitive, but I think some of that could land there. Maybe your neighbor sitting to your left would, I'm not on the spot to decide, but this might be something that could come through your work group, we'll see. Your group hasn't even been formed yet. That's why I want to say I want to defer any substantive response for a month. I don't have a good answer to that. Yo.
Yeah, it's a technical question. I think that John would be a terrific contributor to the council. Do we have a mechanism by which, in case there is a vacancy, somebody that was down on the voting list, I mean, they didn't get to make it to the council, is that the way it works?
No, that's not the way it works. The bylaws say that should a vacancy occur, the council appoints somebody, period. There are many ways to do that. That is one way. We could have solicited the general community for applicants. There's many ways. We chose this particular way this time.
Yeah, if I could address that. I was on the council, I was asked to fill a vacancy on the council during my first year here. 2016, 2017, I can't give you an exact date, but anyway, I was selected. I don't even, to this day, I have no idea how I was selected, but anyway, and I said, okay. And so I ended up serving out that term and then standing for another full 2-year term, the last year of which I served as the president of the council. So that the only reason I'm saying that is that's an example of how it has been done in the past.
Okay, are we doing that discussion? Now let's go back into council connections, which is the next agenda. This afternoon, Jill, who's in the back, and Margaret are going to be interviewed by Halima. Halima, our star interviewer. And then on July 17th, Larry will interview Lindsay. And we'll try to figure out this afternoon when we meet after council connections, meet Yakov, Wayne, and George, what we're going to do in the future. So, second year session. There's a hand in the back, so.
I just wanted to clarify something that I believe was said at the landscape committee meeting. There was quite a bit of discussion about replacement trees, but I know the chair, Deborah Moore, put forward the name of dogwoods and magnolias. So I think that it's sometimes difficult to hear in there, but I think those were the 2 trees that were really advocated for.
Is the tree harvesting that's been done along the main road, is that under the purview of the landscape committee? I just noticed stumps and branches there walking the dog the other day. That's part of the process we've been talking about? Those trees are coming out?
He's working on it.
Okay, thank you. Anything else from anywhere else? I'll take a motion to adjourn. But before that, thank you for the council for coming in this morning and hashing through this business. I think we got some stuff done. Thank you very much. And welcome, John.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion second. Thank you all. Thank you, Zoom World.
If you didn't sign it, please do so on your way out.
Sign up.
Yeah.
Before you Zoom people sign, before you Zoom people, provide the room, please. For the people on Zoom, we don't know who Marilyn McNabb is.
That's Marilyn Malou.
Hey, oh,
Yeah.
okay,
Marilyn McNabb.
got it, thank you.
I was thinking because I was. President. I was
I know.
You just speak more, I was roughly saying.
That's not how it works. I don't know how I could have.
So was the representative and the president They know not, which so
That's the higher language, that's the higher. And the. If it's a school. They're there, so we're sort of talking about seeing. So this was represent, they can have parent, but they're all invested in that. Yes.
I mean, they are.
So this is the
And that's why
board.
they really feel
The issue is this very reason why. Structure is, you know, when a question, how do we address that? You know, like making sure that we could not have
Because they come back to us with.
residents
Like.
like
To the.
to have resident interest represented.
President.
At the board.
That exists in this house. From.
The board, from the council to the board.
From the council to the board.
Yes, there is a liaison. It's the chair. No, it's a. No, right now. There's an issue right now.
Well, but the point is, we're not even that occurred. So busy, you know, and nobody reported, this is